What is up? Welcome back to another episode of the Goldi Luxe podcast. This time around, it's going to be a little bit more of a serious tune. Um, as you might have already been able to tell, my background's different, and I am, in fact, in a different place. I'm not in my apartment today, hence why we're going to talk about it today. So where to begin? It's just so crazy. So I want to start off by saying I am safe. I am in a safe place right now, but holy shit, did I fucking go through it. That's just the only way to put it. I went through it, and I'm not going to lie. I feel like I am deeply traumatized by what I went through, and it was a process. I wanted to film over the weekend on Saturday or Sunday, but today it's already like what, Thursday. It's just the reason I took so long was because I felt like I really needed some time to just relax and really take in what I went through, because I'm not going to lie, it was actually very deeply traumatic. It's the craziest thing that has ever happened in my life ever. So, um where to begin? Okay, so I'm just going to go straight to the point. So this happened about a week ago, and like I said, I have been just taking it easy, and it's been a very very hard time for me, not gonna lie. But it started last Wednesday, February 18th, and my whole entire day was absolutely amazing. I was super happy. It was a great day. I was like chugging along. I was getting all my stuff done. I was super productive. So everything was fine up until the point that I came back from the gym. So the evening on Wednesday the 18th, about a week ago, I got home. Everything was normal. I took my dog out for our nightly walk before we settled down for the night. So I took him out for the walk. Everything was fine. And then we came back from our evening walk, and I was just like taking my dog's leash off and everything and taking his boots off. And all of a sudden, I hear like something right underneath me, and I look down and I noticed somebody had slipped a photo or a, a paper under my floor, and it was just like a very strange message, which to me it really didn't make any sense. Here, I have it here somewhere, but it was super creepy. Somebody just like slipped it under my door like super quickly. So the message reads, "Thank you!" exclamation mark. "Thank you for showing up!" exclamation mark. "I respect the process!" exclamation mark. That was kind of a weird message. It didn't really make sense for somebody to slip that under my door instead of hanging it with tape on the front of my door. Someone slipped it underneath. Um, that was weird. Um, I don't know, maybe they saw that I came back from the gym, or they were like congratulating me or applauding the fact that I was consistently going to the gym, because mind you, my front door neighbor has a Ring camera. So I felt like I always felt weird because our doors are right across from each other, and I always felt like watched with that Ring camera. And that's just a strange feeling as a young woman, to have like a camera placed right in front of your door, so someone can always know when you're coming in, when you're out, like where you're going. Not where you're going, but like anyways. So the message was weird, and I flip it over, and it's a picture of this middle-aged woman that I have never in my life seen before. So that was very strange. Don't know where that came from. So it was like, I kind of just, I was weirded out, like, what the heck is this? But at the same time, it didn't feel threatening at that time. So then I stepped over, and just to use the restroom, and all of a sudden, like, I heard my doorknob flip once, just once. And that's a very distinct sound in my mind. And then my dog, Tyson, barked just like once. He was like, bark, right? And so that kind of enforced to me the fact that somebody had tried to open up my door. Like the doorknob, I heard it turn once. just once, not like no, just like one turn. And I immediately jump up and run out of the bathroom and then go up to the door to hold the door, because for a second I thought somebody was trying to uh break in. And I checked, the door was locked, thankfully. And I immediately looked through the peephole. Mind you, this happened all within the span of a few seconds. I look through the peephole and then I see the back of my neighbor. I see my neighbor going back into his apartment. So in my mind, I was like, what the heck? Did my neighbor really just try to open up my door? That was really, really strange. So to me, this accumulation of things, to me, it just told me that my front door neighbor was acting just really strange. Like he's kind of a tall-ish Asian man, middle-aged Asian man with like glasses, and I've only seen him twice. The 6 months that I've been at that apartment, I've only seen him twice, and I would describe him as awkwardly quiet. So he would just, one time I was in the elevator with my front door neighbor, and it was another random resident, and then he was just like awkwardly standing, not saying anything. He was just awkwardly quiet is the best way that I can describe it. And he always kept to himself, never said hi, never looked around. He's just, I don't know, I would say that my neighbor is strange. I would consider him a strange man. So this happened, and I was kind of like, I had my guard up. I really had my guard up when it came to like safety that night. So I just went ahead. I was starving. I came from the gym, and then I was like fixing dinner, like a whole like 20-30 minutes elapsed because I got to eat my whole dinner. I was like using my cell phone. Then the flames came. So it was wild. I think I was like laying down on my couch or something, or I don't remember. It was so crazy because I literally do not remember what I was doing immediately before I ran to my doorstep. Or I didn't run to my doorstep. I just like came closer to my doorstep. Anyways, all I heard all of a sudden was I heard this like sound, and I look towards the sound that I was hearing, and it was at my doorway, and all of a sudden I see flames, huge strong flames right underneath my doorway. I saw just like an explosion of flames, and followed by this very like distinct like sound. And I was, for a second I was like, holy fucking shit, I think somebody's trying to break into my door, into my apartment, because everything that happened immediately before the fire, and now I was seeing flames right on the other side of my door from like the little doorway, and immediately I was like, I looked at the flames and I just had this reaction like surprised, terrified, and immediately I just couldn't believe what I was seeing with my own two eyes. In my mind, I believe someone is trying to break into my apartment right now and hurt me. Obviously, somebody lit a fire on the other side of my door. So I run to my dishwasher, and I'm like trembling at this point. Run to my dishwasher, I open it, and then I grab the biggest kitchen knife that I have, and I just swing it out of the dishwasher, and I'm holding this large knife, all while simultaneously backing away from my doorstep all the way to the other side of my apartment, which is my living room, and which is where the window is. I open the fucking window because my thoughts are racing super incredibly fast at this point. I'm in survival mode, panic mode. Adrenaline's pumping at this point. I'm shaking. I'm holding this knife. I open up the window because in my mind, what I was thinking was, I didn't know if I was going to have to defend myself against whoever was trying to open up my door, because I thought somebody was trying to burn my doorknob in order to get in, or try to melt the doorknob to just like kick the door open and try to get in. So I didn't know if I was going to have to defend myself. So I was holding this knife, and then At the same time, my dog my dog was like following me around, and I was trying to like also push my dog out of the way, away from the like the doorway where the flames were, and it was just super incredibly chaotic. And the reason I swung the window all the way open was because I didn't know if I was going to have to pretty much escape and like jump out of the window to save myself for this from this burning building that I was in at that moment. And so everything I'm explaining to you, everything happened in the span of like microseconds, but I was acting just so fast. And then I dial 911. I said, Siri, dial 911. Siri didn't even fucking dial 911. Okay. I had to like hold press, and then Siri came on, and I was like, dial 911. And then it finally went. It said, dialing 911. And then at this point, I had like grabbed my dog's collar, his leash. I was trying to like leash him. I was like shaking, and I put the knife on my sofa, and I was like just doing all of this. And I was standing by the window because, again, I didn't know if I was going to have to throw my freaking dog out of the window and then jump out of the window myself to save myself, right? I didn't know what was going to happen at this time. And mind you, here, pause. On my building, I'm on the 5th floor in my building, so I'm up high. But luckily for me, in my mind, there is a very long terrace that covers the whole entire 2nd floor. On the 2nd floor, there's an outdoor terrace. So I would have only been about 3 floors up from the terrace. So it would have been lesser of a fall. And there's like a big bush underneath the terrace. There's like some greenery. So I would have tried to like have my dog land on that bush. I would have tried to land on the bush to help save me. So I knew there was a terrace, and I was more than willing to jump out of that window to save myself, to save my life, save the life of my dog. I would have just like thrown him out. Because then now that I see it for what it is, when you're in the midst of an emergency, things happen so incredibly fast that it's microseconds that you're acting to you're doing all of these little things to try to increase your chances of survival, pretty much. And it's crazy just how fast the brain reacts to danger, to imminent danger. But anyways, 911, I heard the operator, sorry, 911, what's your emergency? And I was still handling my dog's collar, but then I grabbed the phone and I hold it up to me, and I'm like, I give them my address. I'm like, and like super alarmed. I finally give them my building's address, and they're like, and what did I say? I was like there's a fire. There's a fire under the other side of my door. I'm gonna need you guys to come get me. So I remember immediately telling them, like, you guys are gonna need to come get me, because there was flames on the other side, and it was like intense flames on the other side of my door, and I was pretty much backed into a corner, and I was trapped in my apartment. And I cannot tell you just how like my chest tightens, and I cannot emphasize just how anxiety inducing that is to feel just trapped in your apartment, and your only escape is a fucking window, to jump out of the window. Like, can you even imagine being in a situation like that? It was crazy. It was madness. Anyways, I remember distinctly telling they connected me to the fire department, and then fire department was like, what's your address? And then the operator thankfully told him the address, because I was just like, like, you guys need to come get me. Like, you need to come get me. I'm apartment 507. I'm on the 5th floor. I am apartment 507. You guys are going to have to come and get me. I have my dog with me. And they were like, okay, like, calm down. Like, we're getting a lot of help. We're getting a lot of help to you right now. And this is when the sprinkler system turned on and when the fire alarm came on, because everything I'm explaining to you in a lot of detail, but by the time I was on the phone with the fire department, it had only been about 50 seconds since I heard and saw the first flames. So it was only about 50 seconds. So they're like, okay, we're getting a lot of help to you. And at this point, the fire system goes on. So all you hear is like, beep, 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 and my dog freaks out. He's trembling in the corner. He's terrified of this loud noise. And when the fire system started, the sprinkler system came on, and I heard when the sprinkler system came on, I heard all my other neighbors around me. They're like, whoa, like everyone started freaking out, like screaming. They were like, whoa, because it was unexpected. I knew it was going to come on because I saw the freaking flames, and I'm the one making the 911 call to save my ass and save everyone else's ass too. But anyways, so when the sprinkler system came on along with the fire alarm, I only heard the sprinkler system coming in. But while I was on the phone with the fire department, after I told them, you guys are gonna have to come get me, and they told me, we have a lot of help coming to you, that's when I was like, I think somebody is torching the hallway. Like, I remember using the word torching. Like, I was like, somebody's torching the hallway right now, because that's what it's sounding like to me. If you've seen videos of a fire gun, that torch gun, and you see people like doing that, using that fire gun, you hear it's like because it's like an intense fire. This wasn't no silent fire. It was like an intense fire. And I remember being on the phone on the fire department, specifically telling them, somebody's torching the hallway right now. That's exactly what I remember saying. And it was super intense. When I was saying that, I actually remember I was like starting to like pack my laptop, because I was thinking, this place is going down. So that's what I was thinking in my mind. So I grabbed my laptop, I put it in the heavy duty case, and then I run and grab my jacket, my boots, because I don't know, I'm just like a trained emergency department tech. I worked in the emergency department in downtown Seattle for almost 5 years. So I even though I guess my nervous system is trained to still be able to think and think of the details, even when there is adrenaline pumping through my body. So I would say my time as an ER tech, working in the ER and in super intense, in high intensity environments, that definitely helped me and came into play when it came to this emergency, because I don't know how on earth I was like thinking so fast and thinking of the little details. Like, how did I even think about grabbing my jacket because I was going to go outside? How did I think about getting my boots because I didn't want to burn my feet? I was barefooted. I didn't want to burn my feet as I potentially evacuated, because at this point I grabbed I was grabbing my laptop, and then I turn and I see this like immense amount of pitch black water come seeping from the bottom of my doorway, and it's like coming in closer and closer down my hallway. And I'm just like, I knew that it was a sprinkler system, and it was just black water. There was definitely a fire that happened on the other side of the hallway. I didn't know just how bad it was, but I was still on the phone with the fire department, and I was like, there's lots of water coming in. There's lots of water. And I was like grabbing my jacket, grabbing my boots. I was like, there's lots of water coming in. And so, honestly, I wasn't really listening fully to all of their instructions because I was freaking out. I was trying to grab like my belongings, putting my boots on, putting my dog's collar on. I was freaking out. I was trying to keep my dog away from like the black water because I didn't know what the heck was in this water. I could smell the smell that came from the other side was incredibly intense. It was this chemical smell. I was like, holy shit. Like, it was just, the whole memory of it's actually like just pretty traumatic because I saw fire first and then this black water coming from the other side of the door, and it's seeping through the little doorway, and all of a sudden it's just this intense chemical smell coming. Everything just put together. It was just one big traumatic memory for me now that I think about it. And I did cry once I was out of the building and like finally in a safe place and going to bed that night. I did cry because my body was just so tense, like all the whole like 3 hours thereafter the incident. My body was just so tense, and all of this terrifyness that was like in my chest, like that scary feeling, I had to like let it go. And the only way that I was able to let it go was by just crying and releasing. And after I cried, my body was actually went from being tense to being able to just relax, because that I guess your body hangs on to trauma in like very specific ways. But anyways, that's a whole other conversation. So going back, I see the black water. In like a snip of a second, I look up and I see my camera, this camera that I'm recording with right now. I always have it like packaged in this like heavy duty, like hiking type backpack. So I like snatch it up from my closet and I grab it, and I'm putting on my jacket, putting on my camera. I grab my freaking laptop, and in the meantime, like a whole puddle is starting to form at the bottom of my feet, at the foot of my doorway. And I go back to my cell phone, fire department still there, and I was like, I can't see. I try to look through a peephole, completely black. I don't know if it was because of the smoke filled hallway or if like the fire had just blacked out my peephole, but I couldn't see anything. And the fire department person was like, can you open up the door just a little bit? Like, can you see a little bit of smoke or a lot of smoke? And honestly, because of what had happened right before the fire, I was so hesitant to open up the door because I wasn't sure if my front door neighbor or whoever this crazy person that started the fire was, I didn't know if that person was still somewhere out in the hallway, and I was scared. I hesitated to evacuate because I was scared that my front door neighbor was still going to be out there. I didn't know what state his mind was in, where his mental was, and I was just scared. That's the main reason that I yelled at the fire department, you guys are going to have to come get me, because I was afraid if he was still out in the hallway. I was afraid of my neighbor because I thought I was being personally targeted, personally attacked. And so at that moment, at the moment that they told me open up the door just a little bit, check for smoke, I still thought in my mind that I was being personally targeted because I had been harassed immediately before the fire. And so I was just like scared. I thought somebody was like trying to get me. Anyways, but I still had a knife in my purse with me. I grabbed my purse, I grabbed my camera, I had my laptop in the heavy duty case, I had my dog finally leashed, and I take a deep breath, and I'm ready to just like open up the door a little bit. I was scared. I was scared shitless, okay? At this moment, I was just terrified, super scared. I was like hyperventilating, like like just what adrenaline makes you feel like. That's how I was acting, right? So I unlock the door and I open it up a little bit, and all I see is just black smoke. The hallway is pitch black. There's like water from the sprinkler system, like a waterfall coming down my doorstep. It looked like a scene straight out of a nightmare. That was the scene, just straight out of a nightmare. The flames had gone out, thankfully, or from what I could visibly see, there were no flames anymore in front of my apartment's door. But it was just like these like the blackest of black smoke, just covering the whole like hallway. And I just thinking about it just makes me like, it makes my chest like tense up because it was just nightmarish. It was just super nightmarish. I could never have imagined to have gone through something like that. It was just intense, scary. So I immediately shut it. And then I tell the fire department, I was like, there's a lot of smoke. The fire department senses my urgency and that I'm terrified. And he was like, duck down, cover your head, grab a wet cloth and like put it in between the barrier of your doorway. So he was like kind of like tensing up because he could hear the panic in my voice, and he was giving me these instructions, but honestly I wasn't like even listening to that. I just immediately closed the door and locked it again. And it's crazy because when you're like that scared, and fire department told me check to see what the area was looking like to see if I could evacuate, because I wasn't sure if the fire department had arrived yet. But when they told me this, like, I was panicking. It's crazy. I didn't even remember all of the constant times that I was told by firefighters when I was like a little kid in elementary school to like, if you feel like the doorknob and it's a little hot, like, don't open the door because there could very well be a very big fire on the other side. I constantly was told that as a little kid. And when I was panicking in this emergency, the fire department was like, just open up the door a little bit. And I just like freaking did what they told me. I didn't remember like touch the door first. And if the doorknob, like that didn't really calculate because I was freaking out. I was panicking. And that just comes to show like when it's a real emergency, like you're trying to do the best to save your life, right? But there's just like, you could get seriously injured from just like forgetting to do really basic things, like say how to remember all the steps to how to operate a freaking fire extinguisher, because there's steps to operate a fire extinguisher, right? And anyways, so that was my mental. After I closed the door, I was freaking out. I don't remember immediately what I did. But at one point, I do remember just being like, I was like, you have to evacuate. Like, you have to get out of here. In my mind, I just told myself, you're going to have to evacuate. You're going to have to be courageous. You're going to have to be brave. And you have to at least try to evacuate. So I have my dog by the leash. I have my laptop. I have all my belongings. I have my boots on. And I just take like a deep breath. And I tell the fire department, I was like, I'm going to try to make a run for it. I know where the stairwell is because I was my apartment was at the end of the hallway, and I knew my whole building outline. Like I knew where things were. I've been living in this building for like 6 months, right? So I knew where the stair was, and I knew it was just one apartment door over, and the stairwell was just right there. So I told the fire department guy, I was like, I'm going to make a run for it. And then I swing open the door. There's just like a waterfall of water just like trickling down, and just like liters and liters of water coming down at the top of my doorway. And then I just run through the water into the pitch black, smoke filled hallway. And it's crazy because all of these residential and commercial buildings are required to have like the exit signs be able to light up, and all of these different lights are supposed to turn on when the fire alarm comes on. But when I tell you, this hallway was so pitch black, it was so smoke filled, I was running blind. Okay, I couldn't even see. It was so dark, so pitch black, I couldn't even see the lighted exit signs anywhere. I couldn't see not one single light. I was running in the dark. I start running. I can feel like the puddles under my boots. I can smell that chemically smell. And I drag my dog. I have no idea where, like, I couldn't see my dog. I was just like, in my mind, I kept telling myself, just get to the stairwell, just get there as fast as you can. So I'm like, I sprint really fast. I'm like hauling my dog on the leash. I can't see him, right? I can't see in front of me. I don't know if there's any hazards. All I could feel and hear were my footsteps stepping on the puddles at the bottom of the floor. And then finally I get to the stairwell in the span of like 3-4 seconds. I get to the stairwell door. I push it open. It swings open. And finally, it's like the bright stairwell was like packed with water. Tyson slips on the floor. And then I'm looking around, and luckily there was no smoke on the stairwell. All the lights were on. Everything was bright. And then I start making my way down. And when I tell you, there was just like it was like a flood of water, just like water everywhere. And I look above me and there was like another waterfall of water right in front of me. And then I walk by it and fire department was like, caller, are you still there? And I was like, I'm making my way down the stairs. And then all of a sudden Tyson stops, my dog, and I look over and he's like standing like behind the waterfall of water on the stairwell. And I'm like, Tyson, come. And he's like shying away. He's scared. He's very scared by all of this. He doesn't listen to me when I call him. And finally, I'm like, Tyson, come! And I grab his leash and I yank him over, and his body just goes like this. But he was fine. He's a pit bull. His neck is like that thick, right? So I finally yank him down. We're like going down. He's slipping, but we're both like booking it down the stairs. And then I look over. That's not the exit door. I look down. I'm like, and then I remember, yes, I have to keep going down because exit is still down this way. And then I run into like a family. It was a black family, and they had like two babies, like 1-year-old babies with them, and they're just standing at the doorway. And I was like, you guys need to evacuate right now. Da, 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 da. The fire department's on their way. But it's just crazy to me in the midst of an emergency, like how people are just like so afraid to leave their home behind, their belongings behind, that they would just like, they're so attached to that feeling of security connected to their home, that they would just stand there in the fire exit door and like not want to detach from that. You know what I mean? That's just kind of like, it's crazy to me how some people think. But anyways, I told them that fire department's on their way, and they didn't listen to me. They're like, whatever. Anyway, so I'm on the phone. I tell the fire department, like, I finally made my way out. And they're like, okay, you need to back away from the building. And then I grabbed my dog however I could. We crossed the street. There's already like a line of people standing at the side of the street. I see there's already like fire hydrants all around the corner, all down the street, all around the corner. There was another fire hydrant arriving, and then all of a sudden I hear, help us. And I look up, and there's like on the 6th floor above me, I could see there were 2 preteen looking kids. They're like, come help us. And like, so some people didn't evacuate the building, and the building was actually on fire, which was so crazy to me. And it comes to show, if you hear that fire sound, you need to at least try to evacuate, because you never know if this time is going to be a real one, right? So some people didn't evacuate, and they're like, come save us. And I was just so like scared myself that I yelled up at them. I was like, the fire department's here, they're coming to get you, because there were like young kids, you know. But they could visibly see there was like fire hydrants all over the street at this point. I think like 6 or 7 fire hydrants showed up to the scene of our building. And anyways, it was just, I was so fucking scared, even though I was still outside. And anyways, I told the fire department, I was like, okay, I'm away from the building, I'm safe. And they're like, if you need anything, call us back. Da, da, da. And I was like, okay, thank you. And I finally hang up with the fire department. So I grabbed my dog by the leash, and then I walked down the street because I want to be able to visibly see what the firefighters are doing at the front at the entrance of the building. So I want to be able to see like what's going on, like what are they doing. And it looks like they were some of them had already gone in to inspect the building, and I could see a firefighter was lifting up his boots, and another firefighter was washing the bottom of their boots. So I don't know if it was like a toxic spill or something, but they were cleaning their boots. Another one was like pushing like a whole like cart full of tanks, because when I tell you there was tons of smoke, it was tons of smoke. So firefighters definitely needed to use like their breathing tanks to like get in there and whatnot. And then finally people start coming out, because firefighters like are checking the building, they're evacuating people. Everybody's like soaking wet because the sprinkler system went on, and people had to like walk through all that water. It was freezing outside too. It was like in the upper 30s maybe. It was fucking cold outside. My feet were wet and they were freezing, and we were just standing outside in the cold while the firefighters were clearing the fire and everything. And so I'm just like watching them. I didn't luckily I didn't see any more flames. Like when I looked up at the building, there was no flames, or there wasn't even smoke, like visible smoke that I can see. But later on, I heard that some parts of the building did burn, not just like the hallway. But anyways, so the fire department's doing their thing. They're cleaning, they're airing everything out. So that takes about an hour. But I think I waited about 30 minutes until I finally was able to come around and cross the street. There was so many firefighters everywhere, so I was finally able to cross the street with my dog, and I had parked my car right in front of the building entrance. So I put my dog in my car, and my car was fine, not damaged or anything, luckily. And then I look for a cop because I spoke to another firefighter and I asked him like, "Oh, how is it up there?" And they're like, "Oh, no, it's fine. The fire went out, but it looked like somebody poured gasoline and started the fire using gasoline." And when I heard that, I was just I was already in shock, but I was even more in shock to know it was purposely done, and someone just poured fucking gasoline on the hallway and just started a fire in a residential building where families' kids live. You know, I knew it was a person that started that. Like my instincts told me when I saw the fire with the flames at the other side of my door, like underneath my doorway. I knew it was a person starting that fire. It wasn't, like I said, it wasn't a silent fire that starts little by little and expands. It wasn't like that. It was just like not an explosion, but it was loud. It was like and you see these fierce flames. It was crazy, insane, crazy. And so but yeah, I remember the firefighter told me that, and I was like, "Oh, well, I would like to speak to a cop. Like, I want to talk to the police because I'm the one that dialed 911." Anyways, that firefighter came back and he was like, "Oh, a cop, the police is going to come talk to you. You don't have to move." But nobody ever came. So 30 minutes later, after I secured my dog in my car, I flagged down a cop. I'm like, you know what I mean? And then he walks over to me and I was like, "Hey, I know this just happened, but I do want to tell you, I'm the one that called 911. And I do want to say that my front door neighbor was acting very strange right immediately before the fire started." So I was like talking to the police, and I told him about like the note somebody slipped under, and that I heard somebody attempt to open up my door, and then the flames came. So anyways, I told the cop, "I'm apartment 507. Like, I need you to tell me, like, was I targeted? I wanted to know if my apartment door specifically was the one that was lit on fire and started this whole disaster of a fire." And I was like, 507, 507. And then he was like, "Oh, what's your name?" And I told him, and then he's like, "What's your number?" And he was like writing everything down in his little notepad. So anyways, I go back into my car. I sit there and I wait, and then I was like wiping the freaking fog from my car, but because it was just a really cold day and it was super humid from all of the water in the air. But anyways, I see the cops talking, and then all of a sudden I see an SPD cop. He like walks towards the entrance, and he was holding a gun. He was holding a big gun, a long gun, like AR-15 looking type of gun. So he was holding this gun. The cops were talking, and they were ready to go upstairs and look for this guy or whoever started the fire. And so they went upstairs. They were up there for about 15 minutes, and then finally they come down, and then the cop approaches me again, and then he was like, "Hey, can I come talk to you over here?" And then he told me, he was like, "Oh, my name is Officer da 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 da, just so you know, I'm recording this." So anyways, I gave him all of the details, just how I told you guys how the evening started with the weird stuff, and then the fire happened. That's exactly what I told the cop. And so, but he told me right away. So when we started talking, I was like, "How's my apartment?" And he said, "Your apartment is fine. The fire started at the end of the hallway. So apartment 509, 510, that's where the fire was started." And I was like, like I had this sigh of relief immediately, some relief, just to know that it wasn't my door, specifically my door, that had been where the fire started, because that would have scared me shitless to know that like God forbid somebody was targeting, that there was such an act of violence against me personally, that would have scared the shit out of me. But luckily the cop was like, no, your apartment is fine. It was at the end of the hallway, apartment 509, 510. That's where the fire started. So anyways, I gave him like my whole spiel, my whole statement about like what had happened. I told him, I was like, I'm the one that called 911, and I specifically told them somebody's torching the hallway right now. And that's what I told the cop, because that's what I had told the freaking fire department too. But so anyways, it did bring me some comfort to know that it was not my apartment door that had been set on flames, but it was still super, super crazy that my life was put at risk for some crazy person's, who knows what their intentions were. And I just obviously don't appreciate that at all. I was just so traumatized from the events that happened within like 15 minutes. I did not want to go back to my apartment, so I could see all of the movement, and I even saw investigators at the scene, and they even brought up this like long, what looked like a UV light. They brought a UV light up to the 5th floor. I'm sure to my front door neighbor's apartment. I'm sure they checked all of his apartments because I think they were able to get into the surveillance cameras and see that it was in fact my front door neighbor that did it. But the cops didn't tell me that. But I told them, hey, my front door neighbor, he was acting weird, and we are on the 5th floor. So I think you should like look into that, right? So all these investigators were there. Like it was like a very serious crime scene, and they were bringing up like the UV light to check for like fingerprints, and like the investigation was pretty much had started already. Some of the investigators were talking to some of the residents that I live with were giving their statements, and everyone was just like outside. There's a business. There's a boxing business on the very first floor of our building. So a lot of people were able to get in there and kind of just like shelter in place while the firefighters and the cops pretty much cleared the scene for us and made the building as safe for us to return to. But all the while I was in my car after talking to the cop and giving him my whole spiel of what had happened and my fears, right? It was the cop that told me that the person had escaped from the side of the building, and they were starting to ask residents if they had seen anyone or heard anything. But it was the cop that I spoke to. He's the one that told me that the person that did this pretty much escaped. And so they were like looking for him. And the cop also asked me, he was like, hey, do you have a Ring camera? And I was like, no, I don't. And I think it was because they were trying to see if I had any visual pictures of my neighbor, right? But anyways, so I was there sitting in my car and just like waiting for the fire hydrants to move so that I can make my way back to like my family, because deep down I was so traumatized from all the fucked up things that happened that night. Like there was just no way that I could muster up the courage to get back into that apartment. I was just so crazy scared and had so many doubts. I was like, there's no way I'm going back to this apartment today. I had to stop by to get some gas because my gas light was on in my car. And honestly, I'm not gonna lie, I was actually pretty scared and like looking over my shoulder because I did not want to run into my neighbor, or because at that point that's who I thought did this, right? So I was like looking over my shoulder to see like I didn't see any like crazy person approaching me, grab gas, and then I make my way home. And finally I get home, I start crying, and I tell them everything that happened. And I was just like, it was like, no, like there was like a fire in my hallway, and I was just like bawling and just I was in shambles. I had seriously gone through something like super traumatic, and I have never gone through something like that before. So finally I get warm socks. They offer me food, but I had just had this huge dinner before the fire, and I'm drinking water. I have warm blankets, and then finally they leave me to rest. and I have my dog, which makes me very happy, right? To know that he's okay and I'm okay. And finally, I just like all of this like tenseness in my chest. I like finally just let it out, and I just start crying, like, because I was just like, I could have died that night. Like, knock on wood, God forbid, I would have done everything in my power to save my life, including jumping out of the fucking window with my dog. But still, it was just so scary to have that thought in your mind, knowing that you were one of the victims. You were one among many people in the world that find themselves trapped in a burning building. That's just a situation, a predicament that you never want to be in. Because I went through it, and I can assure you, holy shit, that was just too much. It was too much, and I'm not gonna lie, I'm most definitely going to pursue therapy, which I have almost never had therapy in my life, because I was taught good like coping mechanisms and whatnot, and I grew up in a great family. But anyways, I'm definitely going to be pursuing like some therapy after this, because I know I for sure will need it, and I do not want to become this like anxiety ridden, claustrophobic type of person. Like, that's not who I am at all. But anyways, so the next day, I go back to my apartment to get some more of my belongings, because I decide I'm going to stay with my family, and I'm not going to go back to that apartment. I'm going to try to break my lease, just get the fuck out of there and never return. So that was like my mind state. So we go to the apartment, and I had the anticipation that when we stepped out into the hallway and we just checked out like the remainder of what happened in the building, I had this image in my mind that I was going to see this like pitch black, burnt to toast carpet right in front of me. I thought like all of our doors were going to be just like black and burned, because I didn't know just how far the fire reached, if it reached anywhere at all, right? So I go back to my building, accompanied by my family, and we go up to the elevator. Elevator still works fine. And then the elevator door opens, and I look down, and everything's perfectly fine. The carpet is perfectly intact. I look in front of me, there's no marks of like burntness anywhere, and I look over and I just see and hear a ton of fans. So the fans are going on. They put extra fans to like not only remove the remainder of the smoke and the smell of smoke, but also, I guess, to start drying the building down, because later on I found out that the fire resulted in about $60,000 worth in damage for the building. I'm pretty sure it was mostly just from floods. And so we walk to the end of the hallway, and the maintenance man is there with some other men. They're just like doing their thing, starting the cleanup process, and they're standing at the end of the hallway where the fire started. And I approach them, and I tell them, I was like, oh my God, I was scared shitless. And they're like, oh, we're so sorry you went through that. And they're like, no, it was him. And so the maintenance guy was the one that told me. That's how I found out that it was, in fact, my neighbor, my front door neighbor, who started the fire and created this whole mess. And he was like, oh no, the fire started on this side. And then I look over their shoulder, and I just see like blacked out freaking burnt doors on either side of the hallway. So apartment 509 and 5010, they're like this right across from each other. They were completely black, completely burned. There was some on the ceiling, you could see like the streaks of smoke of where the smoke and the fire had touched the ceiling at the end of the hallway. It was just bad. The smell was just pure like gasoline smell, chemical smell. It was not good at all. And it was also really traumatic to even just like smell that smell again. Like it's traumatic to think about it and remember it. But so I look over and I see these black doors, and I'm like, holy fucking shit. Because I look over at my door. my door is perfectly fine. It's intact. Not a single thing burnt anywhere on my door. So that's how I knew, okay, so the fire did in fact start all the way at the end of the hall. And I think my neighbor lit the fire at the end of the hall so that he would be able to use the stairway exit to just like book it out of there. So yeah, I think that's how he escaped. But then the maintenance guy, I asked him, I was like, okay, because I told him what I went through, and like my family was there with me when we were talking, but I specifically asked after he told me, oh, it was him, like it was my front door neighbor who did it. I said, okay, what I do want to know is, does he still have his key? Does he still have access to the building? He said no, his building key was deactivated, but he still has his physical key, so he still could get in. And what he meant by that is he still had the physical key to his own apartment door, but no longer had access to the building, because you need to tap to get into the building. You need to tap to open the elevator and to finally pick your floor number. So there's these security steps to get up onto the building floors. So, I mean, that didn't really comfort me at all, because somebody can easily tailgate their way into the building and he could still try to get in. And the maintenance guy, he also told me, he was like, no, he actually did come back to his apartment after the fire to like grab some of his things. And I was like, what? So my friend or neighbor did in fact come back to his apartment after everything was said and done, started the fire went out. He came back to get some of his stuff in his apartment. So to me, I was already suspecting like my friend or neighbor possibly could have been having a mental health episode, because he was actually acting weird that night before the flames. And who the fuck goes back to the scene of the crime to get some of their stuff? You know, that's just weird. That's just weird. And so it turns out they still haven't arrested my neighbor up until this day. It's a week later. They still haven't made any arrests. So that was freaking scary. And yeah, I packed a suitcase. I grabbed a few of my things. I grabbed some food for my fridge so that I didn't just spoil in my fridge, and I brought it back to my family's house with me. And I've been staying with my family, just crashing on their freaking couch until I get this whole living situation situated. But that's what I went through, and it was traumatic. It was deeply disturbing. It was scary. It was terrifying. I never want to ever go through something like that again. And I would never wish an incident like that to happen to anybody that I know of, or even anybody that ever did me wrong. I wouldn't wish that upon them ever, because that was just the most traumatic, scariest thing I've ever gone through. And I didn't even fucking deserve to go through that. But you know, that's just life. Life happens, and you need to be able to act in certain ways to protect yourself and really take away something from that experience, right? That's the only way that I can look at it, really, because nobody deserves to go through something like that. I don't think I deserve to go through something like that, but instead of just sitting there feeling sorry for myself, you know, I acted, and I see it as a sign to pivot and try a different direction in life, right? So I was in shambles recently, but I've been taking all this time to just really heal, relax, take a step back, and really put my thoughts in line, and I've just been taking care of myself. I've gone to the gym twice already, and I see the gym as like my therapy. And even like you can see my body language, I'm just like holding on to myself and just really like trying to calm myself down. And you can see my body language, like that did fuck me up. It fucked me up good. And I don't want it to define me. I'm not ever going to live my life in fear, ever. I believe life is meant to be lived, outlived, just like life is meant to be amazing and unforgettable. So that's what I will continue to commit to, how I commit to living my life, because that's the only way that I know how to live my life, is unapologetic and relentless. I'm not scared. I want to live life and be brave, be courageous, be adventurous, be fun, be happy, all of that. So yeah, a good thing is I found out today that my manager, I emailed her and told her in a very long way. I told her, this fucked me up. I cannot go back to that apartment. Like, I just can't. I cannot. You need to help me break my lease. And finally she responded to me today, and she was like, hey, I will allow you to break your lease and this and that. And we're going through technicalities, but it sounds like I will be able to move out of my apartments and just not have any repercussions for that. And I won't have to be forced to live in fear anymore by going back to that apartment, because I just don't think I could ever walk through that hallway again and not be reminded from all the visuals and all of like the smell of chemical gasoline. I don't see how I would not be able to be reminded every single day of that traumatic night for me, that traumatic event. And I just don't want to live like that. I don't want to live in fear of having to like look over my shoulders and look around and make sure while I'm opening up my doorway. I don't want to live through that fear of feeling like, oh, I might run into this crazy person that lives in front of me and I didn't know it. Like, I don't want to ever be in a position to run into that person ever again. And it looks like I won't, because I'll be able to break my lease, thankfully. So thank you, Jesus Christ. Thank you, angels, for watching over me. God bless. God bless life. God bless love. God bless opportunities. And I'm keeping my faith strong. I know a lot of people that might not listen to this. If you're not religious, that's fine. We can agree to disagree respectfully. But this is just me. I'm a religious girl, and it just helps me get through life. So God bless my life. God bless Jesus for protecting me. Thank you. I'm just so grateful, and I'm only going to use this incident as a reason more to pursue my dreams and really just be relentless with it and just go 100 miles an hour and just push for the moon and maybe land in a star. Or maybe I could have the moon. I don't know. But anyways, this has been long enough. Thank you so much for sticking till the end. This is what I've been going through. That's why I didn't post over the weekend. I hope you excuse me for that. Taking some time for myself. But God bless to you all. Much love. There will always be love coming from me to you, from here to there. I can assure you that. Because that's how I live my life. And that's who I am. Much love to you all. I hope to see you on the next episode. And I can assure you next episode will be a happier one. But till then, goodbye for now.